All right, next up we've got Brandon Rosh. Welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. My name is Brandon Rosh, and I'm the designer of Dubious Alliance. Dubious Alliance is a fantasy bluffing card game where we pretend to work together as we travel across the fantasy realm, collecting weapons, monsters, slaying monsters, fighting over magic items, and more. And victory is won by the player with the most prestige. By the way, because in this game the players are orcs of the Gore-Stained Axe tribe, we have to work together because, you always have to wonder why orcs knowingly go on patrol when the adventurers are out there, right? And they never come back.
That's right.
It's because orcs know that the worst thing you could do is lose any face, right? It's all about prestige. So,
and of course, orcs have to band together.
And
as a band of orcs.
And as a band of orcs, if anybody gets killed on the band, total party kill. You lose. So what's fun about this game is that, on the one hand, you're working together to survive monsters and traps and horrible events. So on the other, you're trying to outwit and outplay and bluff and cheat and lie, kind of how you figure orcs would work together in the first place. So you're lying and cheating and stealing to win, but you're working together so as not to lose, and that's the Dubious Alliance.
Okay, very cool. Now I know I think I met you at Celesticon. You were at Celesticon this past year,
right?
And a band of orcs actually showed up at the con. Can you tell us a little bit about that and your involvement with them?
Yeah.
And who they are exactly.
Sure. So a band of orcs is a monster metal band because really when you think about it, what other kind of music orcs play should they ever to come to our timetable? My understanding is that they fell into the maelstrom in their own home realm of Hermtodia. And after they got here and realized that, looting gold is very unprofitable because people don't have it anymore, they had to come up with a new gig. I am told by Gronk, the tribal shaman, that they were wandering the streets of Santa Cruz, and off in the distance they heard somebody playing Slayer. And they thought, not only does the music speak to us, but the title of the band also was appropriate for the orcs. And ever since then, they put down their weapons and picked up guitars, and they have been laying waste across the land ever since.
So they put down their axe to pick up an axe.
That's right.
All right.
There we go.
Yes. Although sometimes I think they actually play with both. Instrument in one hand, weapon in the other.
Nice.
You can never be too defenseless, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Brandon was nice enough to let us look at some of the cards here. And are we allowed to? How much are we allowed to talk about this?
Freely.
All right, cool. Because what I love here are just some of the names here. I've got some cards here. The war drummer is Oog Skullbasher. Mm-hmm. The chieftain is Gogog Bloodthroat.
Yeah, the tribal chieftain.
These are obviously some very good orc names.
Yeah, and what's fun is, as players in this game, you're playing an orc, because really who better to teach us how to work together and secretly backstab each other than orcs? And each player card has unique abilities. So Gogog, as the chieftain of the tribe, can intimidate others to force trades. Oog Skullbasher is the party's, as the drummer, he is the most brutal. So he's the party slayer and kill any monster he comes across, basically. So, as you imagine, Gronk the shaman can summon, mystical powers and, dispel magic and protect himself and others if he chooses to.
Cool. So what got you into wanting, what made you want to create your own game?
Yeah, that's great. So, this game actually starts out with, I grew up in the 80s playing, role-playing games, fantasy role-playing games, started on the Red Box.
Oh, yeah.
So I've got my street cred. So many decades of gaming later, I am told that all serious gamers eventually have to try, right?
Right.
Try to make their own game. And really what I wanted to capture was the feel of a role-playing game, the action of in-party fighting, because I like, every tabletop role-playing game I've ever played with. You kind of work together until there's a really good magic item, and then suddenly everybody's secretly vying against each other. And, oh, please may I borrow your Ring of Three Wishes, right? So, how do you capture that, but with the speed and clear victory of a card game? So what I was going for is that old 80s RPG feel, and that's why all the art, for example, you'll see is a lot of pen and ink.
Yeah.
Looks like the old modules.
Yeah.
And, the flip side is, but fast, fun, furious play in the form of a card game. Very, very easy math because, as orcs, you can't really...
Can't math that well.
Yeah, the moment there's modifiers, you're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
So
very cool.
that was really my inspiration, is to bring my love of role-playing games to a social game. So it's kind of 3 to 7 players. The sweet spot is 5, 6, 7 players, and even for 7 players, you can be done in about 40-45 minutes.
Oh, cool.
So it's a very fast play. And, I guess another motive is, for all of us dedicated role-playing gamers, there's that awkward moment where, one person doesn't show up for game night, and you still want to do some, dungeon crawling, you still want to go loot treasure, and this is the card game I envisioned to fill game night when you just don't have as much time as you thought, or, the party's cleric doesn't show up, so there's no reason to go on the adventure, right? You're going to die without a cleric, so you should avoid it at all costs.
Very cool. So, what are your plans on funding the game? What are your expectations, and how do you plan on getting it into print?
Yeah, so I've been working on this for getting on a year, and I've been funding the art myself, been doing a lot of the hands-on graphic work and some of the promotion stuff, and going to conventions, which I'm sure was only business. All I did was focus on the game, hint, hint. But coming up, Memorial Weekend, May 25th, is when the Kickstarter begins. I'm going to use a Kickstarter pre-order funding campaign.
Oh, very cool.
And what we're going to do with the Kickstarter is there's a base deck of 112 cards. Every card has unique illustrations, so it's a really rich, card-intense game. Going to have some early bird pricing. One thing I'm really excited about is going to offer vanity cards. The player cards, when you look at them, the orcs of the Band of Orcs are actual photos. So I wanted to offer that to players, submit, your favorite LARP costume or your favorite illustration of a character that you love, and we're going to make that a player card for your game. So I'm pretty excited about the vanity card aspect. I think people will like that. And
do you have any stretch goals that involves the band?
No, for sure. So the base deck is totally playable. It's standalone, and it's very replayable because of some mechanics that cause you to shuffle cards. So there's games where certain cards just won't show up. So you may not discover the throne room, right? Because the throne room just changes the game. Once you have an orc as a despotic king that can order you to do stuff, man, mayhem ensues. So the stretch goals that I'm really excited about are basically story paths. So that in the opening story path, the Band of Orcs is banding together in order to rid the land of the colossal dragon menace. Snarl the dragon has had his reign, and it's an orc's turns to take it from him. So that's the story path that you play in the base deck. Some stretch goals that introduce new magic items, new spells. Wandering monsters is going to be a fun one, so we can just unleash monsters. And then ideally, at a certain stretch goal, the plan would be to introduce a whole new story path. Take out all the dragon cards, and put in the lair of the Lich King, and now you're up against the undead catacomb horrors.
See, now that's one of those things that as a kid, it was like, we would always argue, is it Lick or is it Lich? Is it Drow or is it Dro?
I've always said Lich.
I know, me too. But it's one of those things where it's technically neither's wrong, right?
I have gone online
more
than once, and apparently the debate has raged on probably before the internet was born. So, actually, if you really want to go dark and sinister, apparently it was borrowed by Lovecraft from an old 1800s term for dead body.
Oh,
yes.
That's
so
very cool.
So I've done my research in preparation for.
I love it. We have an authority.
Yeah.
I've just been having some fun here while you were talking, looking through some of these cards, and just to give a little taste to some of the listeners, some of the weapons here. There's a rock, and at the bottom it says only a little better than your bare hands. I see a sword of fumbling, a cursed weapon, guaranteed to fail agility checks. Sword of fumbling.
Well, I mean, one of the fun aspects of the game is that you have a hand limit for weapons, 2 hands. Again, we keep the orc math really simple. And orcs pick up the first thing they see on the battlefield, right? So if you have Gogog's war axe and suddenly you see this new sword, you're going to pick it up, right? So you pick up the cursed sword of fumbling, and suddenly you went from hero to zero, right? And all of those things happen through a negotiation phase. So one of the fun aspects of the game is it's a bluffing game. So each round you're trading with your band, with your friends, so to speak, trying to convince them to take cards that you may not want. so that you don't want the cursed sword. You want to stick that to your buddy, right?
Nice.
And so cursed weapons, that rock. There's a sharpened stick in there, which is probably better used as a tent pole, by the way.
Very, very cool. So once again, this is just so we wrap things up here and people know this is the name of the game is Dubious Alliance. The Kickstarter begins Memorial Day weekend,
May 25th.
Excellent.
Sunday. And we're gonna actually open at KublaCon, so we're gonna have a mini social game there.
Cool. I'll see you there.
I hear that the tribe may be nearby.
Excellent.
So if you happen to be at KublaCon, make sure and don your armor.
I'm sure Kubla will be keeping them in check.
Yeah, well, we've got more orcs than he has, minions. So
That's true. Brandon, thank you so much. Before we go out, we'd like to hit you with our quickfire questions. We're going to give you like 10 seconds to go through these. Do you think you can handle it?
As a master of time and space, 10 seconds is ample.
All right, cool. All right, Reuben, you going to shoot them off?
Sure, here we go. First question. What is your favorite game?
Favorite game ever of all times? Boy, I really have to say that I'm addicted to my own game. And second only to that, Risk is so simple, and it's the easiest way to sucker people into becoming a gamer.
Cool.
That I still play Risk, even though we all know how to win. Just go for Australia. It's
Nice. Question 2. What is your player color of choice?
Player color of choice? Oh, green.
Awesome.
It's all about the money, right?
Number 3. Name a game you have played to death.
Played to death. Well, I guess it's probably Risk. Since nobody would play with me anymore.
That works.
Question 4. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars. Is that a question? Really?
And number 5. If someone made a game about your life, what would it be called?
Oh, man. Let's see. Mastery of Tedium.
Nice!
And what type of game would it be?
Oh, it's definitely like a role-playing game, video game immersion with a weird twist of, it doesn't reboot. So you just get stuck. You get stuck in a loop in the kitchen and can't get out.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, we really appreciate your time, Brandon.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll see you around.